All right, I'm gonna open up the Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, October 22nd, 2018. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty.
Is that a new flag?
All right.
No.
So, call the meeting to order. We do have a public hearing at 7 o'clock regarding the cable franchise public hearing, but do we want to start with the approval of the manifest?
I'll make a motion to approve the accounts payable manifest of October 22nd, 2018, and the payroll manifest of October 23rd, 2018.
Do we have a second? All in favor? Alrighty. I think I got them all. Everybody watch the Patriots game yesterday?
What a game, huh?
I laughed at the end. Like, yes. Everybody from Chicago must have been looking all depressed. Next up is the approval of the minutes, the public minutes from 9:24 and 10:08, and the non-public minutes for 9:24. Did everybody have a chance to read them and provide any feedback?
I'd like to approve the minutes for September 24th, 2018 as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? I'm gonna do the 10:08 ones too.
Approve the minutes of October 8th, 2018.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? I'll abstain. Non-public of September 24th.
Make a motion to approve the non-public minutes of September 24th, 2018 as
There was no amendments.
no
on
amendments, as is.
Second.
those. All in favor? Great. Next up, BOS reports from the boards and the committees. Budget?
Yes. There was, we didn't really go over too much with the school budget. There was quite a bit of errors in the software that they have, when they were printing it out. So we really didn't dive into it too much. However, that we did discuss some potential upcoming expenses for them, such as software for generating the monthly review. It's currently no longer being supported, and hence the mistakes. At this time, there's no 2020 school year proposed budget. I guess there's some maintenance issues with the parking lot around the school. Proposing to have something done with that. And then updating doors and securities. I guess some of these doors, particularly the back of the building, is still original. So they're looking at possibly replacing those. I guess cafeteria did away with straws for savings in the library, and they just talked about some upgrades to there.
So was it the parking lot that they got maintenance problems? Because I thought they just redid the parking lot.
Well, it's the loop that goes around to the back, where now I guess all the traffic goes around to the back of the building for pickup and drop-offs instead of out front. I guess they're saying that there has been some sinkholes that's been developing.
Huh.
And the maintenance guy over there, I guess, is pretty concerned. He's done some, but overall, I think he'd like to have that addressed at some point. And then they discussed, they're currently using Chromebooks, which is working better than expected. They're 5 years old, and they should be replaced, but it's still in working condition, so they've got some savings there. And then they mentioned that Dale Transportation is down a bus route, but hasn't really affected pickup or drop-offs. That's it.
Austin? So I'm on the master plan subcommittee. We've had 2 meetings. We've got a 3rd meeting coming up on November 13th to review the chapters. So really not, just kind of in the data gathering, assessing what has been accomplished so far, and that's the plan there. Planning board.
We had a short meeting, was it the Wednesday after we last met. A lot of people were absent for various reasons, but we basically spent the time sort of hashing out the details of the items that they want to bring forward as warrant articles. Route 4 rezoning being a big one, and also we reviewed a draft of an upcoming RFP for some consulting work to get our zoning regs, reviewed for organization, clarity, etc. So, which they think may even tie in somewhat with the master plan work. So.
Good. Great. Chris, you're up.
Oh, I'll keep it short. You got a pile tonight. So I think you all saw the new truck on your way in.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben, for doing all the legwork on that. You even went and picked it up today.
Thank you.
Want to take a spin later? You can. I don't think you need a special license for that one either.
No, you don't.
Yeah, so the work on Cooper Hill is underway. I think the rain's going to slow them down a little bit this week, but we'll see. So far, so good. The Halloween parade is December 1st, so make sure that's on your calendar. And the Halloween party is October 27th, if you're more inclined to that, or both. I think that's it that's out of the ordinary, that we won't cover later.
Okay.
Chris, I just had one question in regards to Cooper Hill.
Mhm.
They, prior to putting down the pavement, they are grading it and putting.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
You see some chatter, and some folks were concerned that they're just laying it right on top of what's already there. So all intents and purposes, just wanted to make sure that people know that.
No, they're doing, they've added some already. I was out this afternoon. You'll see the road coming up in places, and it'll be, graded for a crown as it needs to be. This is more engineered than we're accustomed to. We have a full-blown engineering plan on this reconstruction project, which we haven't done with stuff of this scale before. So it'll look different than, there's some different berm work than we've done in the past. They were doing culverts, a couple culverts this week. So
So drainage won't be an issue then.
no, that's the whole point. Is
Awesome.
to try and so it's hilly terrain, so drainage is
It's like a washboard in places,
it's,
up 10 feet, down 10 feet, up
Yeah.
12 feet, up.
But and we had one resident concerned about one of those culvert things today, and the engineer was out with me talking with them. There'll be small differences, but the road is going to travel a heck of a lot better and drier as a result.
Are they doing anything where kind of where the pavement ends and to make the connection? Are they having to do any of, like, the pavement side of it?
Yeah, they'll come up on this end, the Nottingham end, where the pavement ends. They're actually gonna come up, that ends in kind of an odd spot. It's gotta come up the hill a little bit to marry the new pavement and the old pavement. And the intersection of Snow Lane's gonna be tricky too. They brought some of that up, and they'll be reaching in with the aprons a little farther than you might expect just in a casual drive-by for drainage purposes.
That's not gonna create any hazards as far as like a low shoulder for cars getting stuck or anything, will it? Snow.
Well, it's certainly not the intention. The Snow Lane in particular is really broad.
Yeah.
Folks will probably just have to learn that there's, where the road starts and ends.
Yeah.
Is that a private
And
road?
there'll be shoulder gravel on the edge of the asphalt, different kind of gravel to bring up protect the edge of the asphalt.
Right.
That they'll pack in shoulder gravel also, so to keep the side of the asphalt from getting chipped in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have a question?
This is what, is Snow Lane a private road or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next up is the tax deed waivers. If you all will recall, we reviewed these 2 meetings ago. We were going to address these on the October 8th meeting, but we didn't have a quorum, so we had to put that off. It's in your packet of information if you don't have it electronically. So I think there were some questions which we had on a couple of them, which Chris addressed with us. And so I don't know if there's any further discussion. There is the question on the 3 vacant lots versus the lots which have residents. But we would be looking for a motion to provide guidance to the tax collector, so.
Could I ask a question?
As the tax collector,
Packet, I don't. Question. Review what's in the packet.
lots. Chris, the 3 vacant lots, those are the Barrington Road and the 2 Mendham Landing ones. And how long have they been?
From memory, the 2 at Mendham's Landing have been several years without payment. The one on Barrington Road, most recently, we received a payment, I want to say 2 years ago. It's been a little bit more active.
Okay. And Mendham's are non-conforming lot?
Non-conforming, pre-existing. Yep.
And if we were to if we were to not waive the deeding of those 3 lots, then the tax collector would then,
Tax collector will then do mortgage research, determine who the owner of double check who the owner of record is, find out who, if anyone, holds mortgages on them. They need to be notified as an owner, as if they were an owner. Let the appropriate amount of time go by and then execute the tax collector's deed. Is that a fair summary? Did I skip any important steps?
No, just the word shall. I don't have any,
Shall.
I don't have any
Yes, he will.
choice.
He doesn't have a choice. Once you tell him that's what he has to do, that's what he does.
Waiving is the exception. Have these properties been looked at? This is a non-tax collector question in terms of buying a pig in a poke. I mean, I don't know if they have any issues. Which tax deed waivers are usually issued for, such as environmental issues.
We've laid eyes on them all, and none of them have any history of construction on them. Doesn't
We
mean, doesn't
hadn't
mean.
talked about that, so.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. Something buried in the ground there, but they're all.
well, I think Dave.
Hey, I think that's a good policy. It's due diligence.
Right. I can, so. At least my thoughts on this. The other two,
What has been the practice?
I don't think there has been a time where the precedent, I've always looked at the vacant lots as different.
I think it would be,
Look at the dollar amount involved, you know, that's. Right,
where
yes.
it was where it was not.
some of these, residents, like a timeline.
That's 7 years on a large tract of land, amount to a really big sum.
Have to what to do. Some take a hard line, that when the liening process requires that you sit on the lien for 2 years and a day before you can tax deed, and then the process goes forward. Some towns call the sheriff, serve their notices, and evict people. That's the moral dilemma for
Well, I mean,
for any
obviously,
governing body to face, and I don't have a suggestion.
but as Chris had mentioned, the case by case, I certainly don't want to see grandma and grandpa get thrown to the street without having some kind of services in place for them.
Along with that, if I may, goes consistency. Some hearings in court cases have dealt with the fact that people feel they've been singled out. So when I say conundrum, is there's more than one thing to look at. I don't have the answer. No, apparently no town does. But you gotta be prepared, a town has to be prepared for the,
Yeah.
fair to say, Chris, for the legalities of evicting somebody.
Oh, yeah, that is a compelling reason not to, because you are buying the role of landlord from day one, and that comes with, you know, you either gotta evict somebody, or you've gotta manage their property as a landlord in some way, shape, or form. You take on liabilities for all kinds of things when you own the property. So it really needs to be used as a last resort, just for financial reasons. To say nothing of the time and headache, you know, it would take a lot of time, staff time, to manage a process like that, so you need to be committed to doing it. And the consistency is important. You can use whatever benchmark you want, whether it's time or dollars relative to the value of the property, which is really, that's really your protection, is that when the property is sold, you'll get the money that's owed. As the amount that's owed approaches the value of the property, the financial risk goes up. So whatever standard you use, it's important to be consistent with it, because if you don't, then you expose yourself to the charge that you're picking and choosing, and that's a loser in court. Yeah.
The other thing that happens is, as Chris pointed out, your building, it doesn't go away, but unfortunately, we die.
Yeah.
And if we own the property and we die, then the town's position is first. It's ahead of the banks, it's ahead of other debtors. So it may, in some cases, turn to be a waiting game to monitor, and I'm not wishing anybody death, but when it happens, and it will, the game changes. We've had some people that were in lien status that haven't reached the deeding process this year. The properties have sold under duress, and when they do, the people that buy them send me a check, usually the closing company, because they'll clear that debt. So that's something that we don't talk about at the deeding process, but it does happen on the sale, or unfortunately, if the estate of somebody tries to sell, that debt will be cleared before any bank will touch it from a mortgage standpoint.
And Chris, I know we talked at we last talked about this, about for those that are kind of up there, there's like 3 or 4 that are pretty high. We could gently notify them of our welfare officer to perhaps connect them with, in case there's other credit issues that they're dealing with. We can't tell them to do that, but we can just make them aware that there are services, so I think.
Yeah, there's, of those big dollar ones, there's nobody that's not aware of it, and I'm sure it weighs on them. I mean, I've had conversations with anybody on the top end of that list. It's not a, I mean, I don't know their personal finances, but
Right.
they're not sticking their head in the sand and hoping that we're gonna go away, because they know we're not, so. There's no cases, in the big dollar cases, there's none of that.
So we've got the group that have residents living on them. Is everybody in agreement that we don't want to? Does someone want to make a motion on that group, and then we can discuss the vacant lots?
Do we
Or-
need to read out?
Yeah, you should read each of those.
Yeah, you have to read each one.
And you're gonna sign one for each of them, so.
The
get your
map
pen.
and the lot.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion that the select board waive the deeds and notify the tax collector that they will not accept the tax collector's deeds on the following properties pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 80:38, being map 1, lot 2, 10 Barrington Road, map 1, lot 3, 12 Barrington Road, Map 1, Lot 12, Barrington Road. Map 6, Lot 4, 118 Smoke Street. Map 8, Lot 13, 288 Stepping Stones Road. Map 12, Lot 9, Sub 1, 76 Kennard Road. Map 16, Lot 18, Sub 3, Road. Map 20, Lot 7, Sub 8, 63 Priest Road. Map 20, Lot 8, Sub 1, 47 Priest Road. Map 23, Lot 2, Sub 100, Cedar Waters. Map 23, Lot 2, Sub 112, Cedar Waters. Map 23, Lot 2, Sub 143, Cedar Waters. Map 24, Lot 89, 8 Robin Hood Drive. Map 24, Lot 103, Robin Hood Drive. Map 24, Lot 141, Sub 2, 209 Mill Pond Road. Map 24, Lot 143, 130 Kelsey Road. Map 28, Lot 12, 28 Guile Road. Map 37, Lot 25, Sub 4, 1 Camelot Court. Map 39, Lot 24, 32 South Summer Street. Map 46, Lot 6, 104 Stevens Hill Road. And map 68, Lot 110, 3 Siemens Point Road.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Sign. Just
Yeah.
assembly line them. Come on, I can't get them apart.
Pile right here.
Oh, he wants them in order.
Oh,
You want them in
okay.
order?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Did you include these in your motion?
Yeah, we didn't, the
Okay.
vacant
No.
lots.
No, I stopped.
I stopped there.
So for these, we just simply take no action and
If you take no action, they will be deeded.
So you can make a motion, we can have a second, we can discuss it. This is the way we can do it, or we can we'll just discuss it and then make the motion on the 3 vacant lots.
Which one was the one that, 2 years ago they made a payment? That was the first one. That was the first one?
The Barrett
Yeah,
one.
map 1, lot 1.
And what about the other two?
Those are the ones that have been multiple years. I can't really read it from the file that I have, but it's more than 3. And, tell ya. They were not on the list that we did in 2015, so it's probably been 2.5 to 3. That's, don't hold me to that in court, but close to that.
And when was the last time we were out there to do a drive-by or anything on the minutes?
Probably last year when we did
When we
this
were-
process, yep. And it was just a drive-by, look out the window, not
Not a walk.
a walk around, no. Those are, you might want to take this into consideration, those are both under $1,000 total low,
Total due,
yeah,
past due.
yeah. So,
So, why don't we, waive them, but we come up with a precedence as far as, a further discussion later, whether it's dollar amount or a year. Years, rather.
You wanna make the motion?
Okay, this is gonna be my first one, so please, try not to butcher it too much. I make a motion to waive,
Just follow the up above, the language,
yeah,
so
move,
get it right.
I make a motion to move the Board of Selectmen waive the deeds to, and notify the tax collector that they will not accept the tax collector's deeds on the following properties pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 8038. Map 1, Lot 1, Barrington Road. Map 5, Lot 2, 29. Map 5, Lot 2, sub 31, until we're able to set a precedent.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. Right, next on the agenda is, Oh, it's 7. Should we go to the public hearing?
Yep.
All right. We have the cable franchise public hearing. So I'm going to open up the public hearing for the cable franchise renewal. And as for folks, this renewal, it happens every 5 to 10 years, I believe. Is it 5 or 10 years?
This is 10, the last one was 7.
Okay, so 10 years, which allows Comcast to have access to providing us cable channels, and allows for construction and installation. It does not allow the municipality to decide who will or will not be our provider in the town. It's more really related to access per the FCC, right? Requirements?
Telecommunications Act, et
Act,
cetera, yep.
So I'm going to open up the public hearing for the cable franchise agreement, and if anyone would like to step forward and have any comments, please don't hesitate. Okay.
I would like to know about it. That's why I came.
Okay. Can you best?
So most of this is governed by federal law. Municipalities don't have a lot of authority over, well, not much of anything. Basically, we are allowing the franchisee to use our rights of way to carry their wires and poles. We go through this exercise to make sure that there's some local check on, is the company capable of delivering what it says it will? Is it, does it actually deliver the service? Does it do so relatively safely? Does it have the financial ability to execute on it? Does it have reasonable policies in place for, how to sign up, how to cancel, things like that? There's no local input into programming, what channels are offered, what it costs the average consumer, any consumer. It's really about an agreement with them to use our rights of way. And if another company wanted to come and string wires and offer the same service, we would go through this exercise with another company just like them. This is non-exclusive, so this does not prohibit anybody else from offering the service. We've not had even a sniff of interest in that from anybody in my time here.
I gather the wires and cables are owned by Comcast.
Yes, not all the poles, they're usually hung on somebody else's poles, but they own the wires. That is the hurdle for any other competitor, is the cost of that infrastructure. So I have not seen anything since FiOS slowed down in New Hampshire. I've not seen anyone else offering anything close to cable TV or residential internet, hardwired residential internet, anywhere else, except maybe there's something going on in the bigger cities. The more dense places are going to see those rollouts much sooner than we are, just on cost per mile kind of thing for them. So this is the only feedback we ever hear about Comcast is complaints about cost and occasionally service. Pretty typical consumer stuff that I've dealt with them, and we've all banged our heads against the wall with that. But we don't really have a lot of say in that, or in what channel you're gonna get on what number. And the other thing I should mention is that this arrangement is where the TV broadcast of our meetings and the school's functions all comes from. That's all covered in this document. They agreed to carve out a channel for us, and, you know, the technical aspects of that are all handled here, as well as the fee that gets placed on top of the bill for everybody, called the franchise fee, which pays for those services here. That money comes through Comcast to us, and that's laid out in here. It doesn't change from the prior one to this one.
Is that franchise fee negotiable?
Yes.
And has it been negotiated?
We discussed it, and it's, I think, 3% of the bill, essentially. And the board was comfortable where that was, covering the cost that we have and the school has for what we've typically spent that money on is the gear, the cameras, the microphones, the head units in the two places. So we've got enough money in our cable franchise fund to cover that. That fund is capped, and anything above that goes back to the general fund. And that's happened for the last couple of years, where we've had sufficient funds to cover any investments that we needed in the equipment.
I lost, when was the last time this came up?
2011, I believe.
Is there a regular cycle that has to come up on it?
Well, it comes up because the last one expired.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. September 2011 was the last time it was approved. So the one we've finished is 7 years, the one we're entering is 10 years. I think that's a good move, because we're really just paying the lawyers to rubber stamp essentially the same deal as last time. You know, it does, we don't have the opportunity to pick up too much in this process. Lacking any competitors, you know, I think the consumer landscape is what it is.
And we did receive one email from Christine.
Yes, you got some
David.
feedback that you've all read from Kristen Davidson.
Yeah. And we have had our attorney review the agreement and make some modifications with Comcast to make sure that we're protected. And refresh my memory, did we agree that we want to offer the availability of the senior citizen discount? Did we agree on that?
That's not part of this.
It's not part of the agreement, it's just something that,
It's a side deal that
okay,
we got on the side. It's a couple of bucks for off of the most basic package.
it's not much, but
It's, you know, but it's something, but it's
it's
not,
something.
not much, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Burns? All right, having here none, I will close the public hearing for the cable franchise renewal agreement. And do we need a motion to?
If you're
enter
ready to
into it?
approve, you go right ahead and we'll
Does-
sign it and ship it.
Does anybody have any further questions, concerns for Chris or that? Okay. Does someone want to make a motion to accept?
Just accept that.
I'll make a motion that the select board accept the renewal of the cable television franchise agreement between the town of Nottingham, New Hampshire and
Comcast.
Comcast
Comcast
Incorporated.
of Maine, New Hampshire.
Comcast of Maine and New
Does
Hampshire.
it have a date on it?
You are dating it.
Dated, well, it says,
Our signature date
Yeah.
yeah, well,
or a revision? How about that, the October?
it says for
5th?
the term October 1st, 2018 to September 30th, 2028.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thanks for all your work on that, Chris.
Just one or both? Both?
Yeah, we'll do both. we'll get a fresh one.
Okay. We'll do, Chief. Next. Where are you? There you are.
Have a seat. Have a seat.
Good evening,
Introduce Matthew Stinson. Matt was hired. Go down, Matt. Successfully completed his
It's been really great. I've learned a lot so far. It's a cool town also.
Yeah, great. Where do you live?
Right now I live in Portsmouth.
Yeah.
We can get a picture. Matthew, down there.
Said the paramedic course was 1 day a week?
Yep. Yeah, so on Mondays, I have about 11 months left, so I just a little bit less than a year.
Now, how many paramedics do you have?
We have one right now. We had two. Young lady who Matt came in on his day off to do this because he's normally not around on Mondays as school days. Well, good evening. You have Chris's white paper. Have you had a chance to?
Yes. I just need to find it here.
Okay.
But go ahead.
I'm just going to start that. Part of my responsibilities is to alert the board of conditions. What we're seeing on our department is consistent with nationally. We're seeing a decrease in call members, old terminology, volunteer members. We're seeing our call volume increase, and I'm just alerting the board that to continue in this posture, I don't see it going on forever, okay? Our number of call members has fluctuated between 13 and 28 or so since I've been chief. That comes down to the really true statement is there's about 11 to 12 people that you really can count on the department at any time. Our call volume, not to bore you, there's a lot of metrics in here, and I want to start out with a little anecdote that our next call, and I think my department shares it, is always our most important call, okay? We're not looking in the rearview mirror, we're looking at our metrics to improve our services and improve our coverage, but we treat our next call, the next call, as our most important call, okay? You take a look at our metrics, 1 October, and I just want to highlight, for the 1 October meeting, I briefed the department that we are 23% higher than we were the same time the previous year. We're averaging 1.6 calls a day so far this calendar year. As of this morning, we're at a total of 428 calls, and we just entered the last quarter of the calendar year. So we're probably looking to set a new high for calls for the department. We've had 2 months earlier in the year where we had approximately 60 calls in a month, which is that was a new high for us. So the reason I'm here is just to alert the board that the current model that we're operating under is, I don't see it lasting forever. Nationally, there's been a decrease in a pool of people that traditionally have been volunteer/call members. So we need to look at what we could do to make our services and our response times better. In this year's draft capital improvement plan that I had submitted to the town administrator, there were 3 items in there that I'd want to, as a roadmap. It's not, this problem is not something we're going to solve overnight. We're not going to one day come in and say, geez, half the department retired because they got X amount of time on them and the rest of them got fed up and they left, and we have 3 full-time left, and how are we going to cover the town? We need to have a plan here for the future, and that's what this is about. So anyway, go back to the CIP, to draw that in there. There were 3 items in there to kind of lay out the plan, or at least address that in the room, in the elephant here, okay? One of the items is, both coupled with a painting of the office spaces, was to get an estimate/study to see what facility upgrades would be needed to convert most likely the mezzanine area of the station, because that's what it was envisioned to, as a full-time bunk area for around-the-clock coverage, to get an idea what requirements need to be met and what that would cost. And then the following year, there was a wedge in the CIP to do that construction, that modification to the mezzanine. And then finally, the 3rd year, I had put in the CIP, as the wedge in there, to hire 3 additional full-time folks that would extend the coverage to round the clock for 6 days a week, and put the Sunday shift on a per diem basis. That's where the CIP basis is. The white paper here goes into several different options, and as a short-term immediate type correction, change, improvement, we're looking at changing our officers' duty coverage on weekends. Right now, it's part of the point system. They're awarded 2 points for remaining in town, giving up a Saturday or Sunday to be the second person for the single full-time person. Looking at putting them on a per diem status for that day. If the officer isn't willing to stand at, then open it up to other per diem people and have that person on shift at the station during that time, with the help of reducing some of that, the call response time. Our averages, our calls average, they follow the national average in terms of EMS. 2/3 of our calls plus our EMS and variety. There's also metrics in here that shows response times, and it drastically shows the difference in response times, basically double between the career staffed hours and the call covered hours, and that's a simple time and distance kind of problem here. If you're not in a station, somebody's gotta respond to the station before they can, man the apparatus. So that's, until we solve that time and space problem, that's where that comes from. So, other than that, that's, I just, over the last few years, we've made it more member-friendly than it has been, sort of 30 years I've been on the department, in areas of training and training expenses. We've been more open in paying for the training up front, and not expecting the probationary member to foot the bill $1,500 plus and be out a year or two. We've been more what do I say, more liberal in the paying up front and the training to try to entice people to stay. We've opened the doors and had blanket put the sign out and recruit members, and right now my last batch, I have a 25% success rate out of 4 members that came through the door because the sign was there. One person went through licensing and completed probationary, so that's not a very good return on investment either there. So that's basically, that's the background. I'll answer any questions. I didn't want to flip through the page by page, if you don't mind. So, the message is here that something's got to change. It's not gonna, I don't see it going on forever, and we're sharing the same burden and pain that nationally and even our neighbors are. If anybody plays Scannerland, listens to any, most people got better things to do than listen to, emergency calls throughout the state, you could hear the change in service times and responses. And this is anecdotal again, some EMS calls in areas of the state are tying up 3 different departments to get 2 licenses and ending up with a second ambulance being parked on scene while there's a problem brewing here. Okay, so that's my bleak outlook here, that I don't see it going on forever like that. So.
Yeah, we're not the only community dealing with the challenges, and not the only field that's dealing with challenges of people not wanting to fill those jobs anymore. So it is definitely a challenge. But I guess, well, a couple of questions. So we've got the volunteers and we've got the staff. We have challenges with both.
True.
One, we bring on not new people, they stay for a couple of years, they get bored, and they go elsewhere. There's more opportunities in other towns, more exciting, more money. And we've got the volunteers where like you said, we've got some pretty good, steady people that, kind of the core. But it sounds like kind of that isn't getting replenished at the rate that we need to do it. So kind of what you've proposed in the CIP is to kind of shift some of that volunteer into full-time positions. But that doesn't necessarily, go ahead, correct me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead.
But that doesn't necessarily address kind of the challenge that we're still having.
Eventually, it does address one of the major concerns that I hear on exit interviews with staff that have left. Schedule is huge. Okay, 24-hour shifts, working 2 24-hour shifts a week, 48-hour work weeks is a huge consideration for these folks when they leave. It gives them the opportunity, of additional overtime in the big departments, but also have a second career, second vocation. They could work per diem in other departments and things like that. It increases their capability of earning, okay? So, increasing the full-time staff, that would be a 24-hour shift type scenario, 1 on, 2 off, I think is what I drew up. You can't, if mathematically, you can't really do it with less than 6 people to go around the clock, and that's at a 6-day, we bang our heads trying to figure it out. So that full-time around the clock would address some of that attrition concerns, perhaps. But it would also, it would address, you know, the round-the-clock coverage as far as the call members not having the burden all the time, okay? Obviously, two people on shift, you know, it's an EMS crew, okay? I'm not kidding you. It's below any NFPA minimum staffing, okay, for a structure fire. You're still gonna rely on additional people, be it call members and mutual aid, that sort of stuff.
Because, also, you, correct me if I'm wrong, you need at least 2 people in the fire truck before that fire truck leaves, right? And you need 2 people in the ambulance before that ambulance leaves?
There is no law about the fire truck. There's NFPA guidelines on a full crew. We run the truck with 2 people on. If someone's going direct or whatever, we'll have the truck roll by itself and meet other people there. The only licensing requirement, and you're correct there, is in the EMS area. The truck can roll and does roll with 1 license, but it can't transport. You can't load the patient and move them, take them to the hospital with less than 2 licenses. The minimum are 2 licenses on board. So that's where the 2 people in-house were, you know, 2 provider licenses. I should be clear on what they are. We're not talking driver's licenses there.
I have more questions, but I'll let you guys ask questions.
Well, it says that there's 3 full-time career firefighters, EMT. 1 will be vacant shortly.
Correct.
Someone else is leaving?
Yes, it's no secret. Megan Dion has accepted a position with Dover, and her last scheduled workday is Sunday, this coming Sunday. Yep.
So we're gonna be actively looking for someone else to...
We are currently, we have, since she gave me the courtesy of, she let me know 3 months ago that she was pursuing this. She didn't make the first round, and we've been looking, okay? Okay. We will be actively trying to fill this position as soon as possible, because like it says, it puts a significant burden on the rest of us, because then their shifts change, and it opens up more not covered time
Yeah.
for everybody else.
Chief, your call for services, are they mostly for the ambulance?
At least 2/3, more than 2/3. The national average is 2/3, and we're above, it's about 70% or so.
And most of the time, that's fully staffed, we didn't have to rely on mutual aid?
Most of the time. I'm saying we may come in a situation, probably average about 2 calls a month that mutual aid is covering, for not only that we couldn't get a crew to cover, but another phenomenon, we see our back-to-back calls, it seems
Yeah.
like. For that second transport, we need a mutual aid ambulance, so.
So, is the bulk of your calls during the day?
Uh,
If you had to put it like 6 to 6 kind of thing, or?
You take a look at the metrics here, and it's showing that the bulk are hours a day. It shows probably peaks between, help me with the metrics there, Chris,
Like
8 to 4-ish kind of stuff,
Yeah.
8 to 7-ish kind of stuff.
Well, where I was going with that,
Yeah.
Chief, is that you had mentioned you would need 6 for around-the-clock coverage, correct?
Yes, yes.
So hypothetically, you know, if we lose this person, we're gonna be down to 2, so we'd have to replace 1 right away.
Right,
But if we add another one, you need a minimum of 2 people at all times, right?
correct.
So, hear me out for one moment, if they went with 12-hour shifts,
Yeah,
days and rely on call services at night, we'll have essentially coverage 7 days a week in a Panama-type schedule.
I see it a different way, because I know that, you know, when they leave after the 12-hour shift, like I said, the next call is the most important one.
No, I totally hear you, Chief.
Yep.
But I was thinking, you know, down the road, cost-wise, how this is gonna impact the taxpayers and all that. You know, in the current position that I work at my other job, we work a Panama schedule where
Yeah,
Monday and Tuesday you'd have off, Wednesday, Thursday on, then you'll have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and then you flip it
Yeah.
next week. So essentially, those 2 people would have every other weekend off. Those 2 officers, they're off, you'd have 2 more in its place, that other half.
okay.
So you essentially would have coverage 7 days a week during whatever time schedule you would come up.
Okay, I'd be interested to see that schedule, okay?
Do you have any kind of a service agreement, like with your new recruits, you know, commit them to a certain amount of time with the department?
No, sir.
No, because I know some departments do that. Would that help?
I don't know if they're enforceable. I've talked to this before, like, I'm not sure, the PD, I think, might have gone that way before, whether they're enforceable or not.
You'd be chasing
We did
them.
talk about that, like,
You'd be chasing them in small claims court forever. You'd spend more money fighting the case, I believe.
Chief, I just want to make sure that you understood what I meant by those 12-hour shifts. Day shift, or whatever the 12
Yeah.
hours that you would deem necessary, and the rest of the time would be relied on the volunteers. Want to make sure that you understood that.
and that would be, what's the total number of 12-hour people that I would need for that?
Well, you said you need a minimum of 2 people to run, so you'd have 2 people on for the 12-hour shift,
Yeah,
and then after they get off, let's say 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock
Yeah.
at night, then you rely on your volunteers. And then they'll work 2 days, and then they'll come in, they'll have 2 days off, then your next 2 people will come in. I mean, we can talk about this later.
I like to see the schedule, because I bang my head.
It turns into, I think, a 3-day week and a 4-day week with a 12-hour schedule to get to your 40
Right, but
hours.
within the pay period, you're working like 84 hours. You're still getting your hours in.
Right, so it's, you gotta work 7 12s essentially over a 2-week period,
Give or take, yeah.
right? So it's probably a three in a row and then a 4 in a row? Is that,
Well, like,
I want to talk about where we get to, we talked through some of the 12-hour scenarios and the idea of multiple, back-to-back-to-back 12s.
the only time you would have
Little-
like 3 days in a row would
Yeah.
be your every other weekend. The rest would be
Yeah.
2 days back to back.
So it's 2-2.
It's like 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, and then you flip it, 2 off, 2 on, 3 off.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar, but I'm interested in seeing it,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, we were both nervous about consecutive 12s. Because, what kind of sleep do you really get? And there you live it, so
Yeah.
you know. That gave us both some pause of,
I just think, well, with 12-hour shifts, and if we were ever to go 24 hours, you would actually need less manning with 12-hour shifts than you would with 8 hours. If you think about it, because you'd have 2 in the day, 2 at night. That's 4, but we're only talking day shift right now.
Yeah.
So then to have coverage at that, the 2 schedule, if we were to have 4 full-timers, you would actually have 7 days a week coverage during the day. And then your call force would be relied upon at night.
That's part of the problem too, is the depth in the call force that I just don't wanna,
Just food for thought, chief.
okay, yeah, right now, and it's contained in here that we do run duty crews, and one night Monday is like a skeleton crew, basically for EMS coverage. There are firefighters for an engine company. Are they fully staffed for an engine company? Not really. Monday through Thursday, where our call people are committed to 10 PM to 5 AM cover from their home. They're not at the station all night. The people in town gotta realize that our station is unmanned at nighttime. We have people still pulling up to the front door, for medical emergencies, and trying to call calling the station directly. That's not the way you do it. You gotta dial 911, and that's the way it goes. So I don't want to lessen that. Part of the issue is the depth in the call force that needs to be addressed also. So, and if you talk to the call people, and you could ask some of them that took their time to come tonight, everyone says it's not money that's the issue. It's in there. We bumped up the stipend, we bumped up the per diem rates. Let's be realistic, these people have real jobs, okay? And, based on where they are in their cycle of family life, they've got a lot of commitments out there too. There's people that give a lot to make this still work, but I don't see this, I'm telling you, I don't mean to,
But your full-timers that are leaving, it's not the money, it's basically they want to have some sort of life, so to speak,
they want that.
opportunities for overtime, as you mentioned.
The primary one that I get is the 24-hour shift. That's huge. But, you go into the same thing. Is Matt still here? Okay.
Match.
Yeah, exactly. We're the entry level for all the departments. You go take a look at our history. We got a guy, we got a guy in Merrimack, we got a guy in Hudson, we got a guy in Manchester. We got 2 on Dover now. We have 2 on Durham. Portsmouth. We have a young lady in Portsmouth that started here. they've started here, but they've gone on to, the more lucrative schedule, the more lucrative there is overtime opportunities, and everything else that was spelled out in there, the more, for advancement, obviously, plus the excitement, obviously, there are thousands of calls a year, so, but the 24-hour, I think, would be a step in the right direction if we were gonna, you know, for retention kind of thing, so.
Did you have anything before I go to the next one? My next one's not really a question, but in the New Hampshire Business Review magazine, I'll give you a copy. There was an article on the evolution of ambulance services, which talks about outsourcing, and I wanted to just share that with the group, just so everyone has it. I guess Candia outsources with the same company that Manchester uses. Yeah. So anyways, I'm giving it to everybody just to read. And I thought it was an interesting article and pretty timely.
I hope this isn't a success story for Candy, is it? I don't mean to be,
I don't know, you'd have to talk to Candia, but,
yeah.
you know, it would be interesting, to, you know,
yes.
and I think it's just speaks to the challenges that we're seeing and what some folks are trying to address, right or wrong, success or not success.
Speaking as a member of the public, I'm always proud of our fire and rescue, how well they are in advance of telling us there's a problem, rather than saying, wow, we got a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
They've been incredibly proactive over the years I've been in town.
I think a lot of that has to do with their leadership and working together as a family and as a team, so hats off to you guys.
Thank you. Some of the realism, and I don't mean that, AMR does not cover 100% of their calls. They're relying on mutual aid from other departments pretty regularly.
Yeah.
It depends on what Manchester's load is. That's why I said if you ever.
Yeah, and I mean, Candy is pretty close to Manchester, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy, right? Or it's easier. If we were to use this company to come to Nottingham, and they're basically based out of Manchester, then that's a lot more driving to get to a house in Nottingham. So I'm not proposing that we do it, I'm just sharing the article. I read it this weekend and made copies today to give to everybody, but yeah, I think it just speaks to the challenges that small towns like us are having, and not just small towns, but big towns, and the fact that, you know, it's not, there's not a lot of folks going into this field. And, I mean, you see it across the healthcare industry as well, so, I mean, I think you've presented quite a bit of information, you've presented options. I think we all agree that there's no easy solution, and, but it's one that I think as a community will continue to try to figure out and put our best foot forward to the people who really decide.
Yes.
And see what happens.
There are grant opportunities also, but the way it's been explained, you know, you're only, that's just to get your feet wet, okay? There are grant opportunities for expanding your full-time, but you owned them after, I think, 4 years or so.
And I think, if I remember correctly, and I might not remember correctly, but I think when we built the fire department and we did that mezzanine, it was with that long-term plan, that's where we would end up.
That's what I understand, yep.
Yeah, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Chief, is there any federal grants out there that could help towards manning purposes? I
Oh,
know
yeah,
sometimes.
SAFER grant is one, yes, it's called
Okay.
a SAFER grant. But it's like a 4-year period, it's good to 2023. I'm sure with, you know, we'll be talking about this, whether you want us to pursue it. It helps with the first 4 years, and it's a decreasing scale, where after 4 years, the town owns the full expense of them, okay? Yeah, there are.
Now, with this federal grant, does that pay for the benefits and all that other stuff too?
I
or-
think it's fully loaded, and I'm pretty sure it's fully loaded, yes.
I think that might be something we could look into, you know, if the purpose is making it go 24 hours.
It's a FEMA grant, like I said, they're out to 2023. We could talk about probably in the 19-20 cycle about pursuing them. Right now, we're Captain Pedersen and firefighter Boston are pursuing our AFG grant for our SCBA, so we're focused on it. We would need more discussion to get your approval, because there's some commitments there about where that money is gonna come from in the long term, so. Yes, there are grant opportunities out there as of today.
So Chief, I guess what's kind of the next step in the process, and how can we, how can we work together to try to kind of move what, one of these proposals or the proposal that you've put forth in the CIP?
Short term, we plan on using per diem more to cover some of the shifts on the weekend to keep 2 people in there. In fact, next year's budget's gonna be modified to have a graduated scale for per diem rates based on what your qualifications are, and probably an increase in the per diem pool of money, okay? Be honest with you, I've got maybe 2.5 to 3.5 people on my department that actively take care of the per diem opportunities because of work commitments. Other folks, they want their time off, and I don't blame them. Possibly opening up the per diem opportunity to other departments. I've seen that in the area where a pool of per diem folks that not only in our department, but people that regularly work per diem in neighboring departments, and see if they're interested in filling shifts, okay, after some sort of qualification period, which would involve our equipment, in our town sort of stuff, the geography of our town. The rest of the stuff should be transparent. They're nationally licensed and certified firefighters, so that should change. That's the short term. Long term, would definitely need more communication in terms of where we're gonna go in the future, to pick up any of, the 1, the 3, or, more, whatever that takes. Again, this is not meant, this is a heads up that we're going on a path like everybody else, okay? I'm not looking for an immediate, go out and that sort of stuff. And to alert you what's in the CIP, that there is sort of a roadmap in there, whether they move to the right or whatever, that's the voters and your decision, but at least we're thinking in advance here.
Any other questions for? Thanks for coming.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you all for coming
okay?
too.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do, too.
Thank you. Thank you very much, folks. Chris? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, go back to tax rate setting on the agenda. So we got the numbers from DRA. And it is looking like a total tax rate of 2264.
Correct.
Chris, how does that relate to the surrounding communities? Are we still below?
I don't know. I haven't looked. We're in the middle of it here, so we won't know what everybody around us is doing.
Wasn't sure if they posted theirs yet or not.
Some of them have been posted. As they get finalized, they get posted. But I think I've only seen maybe 20 statewide that have finalized the last time I looked.
Okay.
And remember, that's only, the rate itself is only one piece of that equation,
Right.
That's.
So Chris, for tonight, we need to either go with that rate as it stands. We're pretty slim in the, we're in the lower end of the fund balance, because we put some significant amount of money last year to use to bring down the tax rate. Did anyone have any thoughts when they read through what it looks like and where we are with the fund balance? If we use the fund balance, the amount that we probably could safely use doesn't really make much of an impact, right?
If I'm understanding this correctly, the fund balance would be to reduce the rate, so, we could get caught up in a vicious cycle where we're doing this every year.
We have been caught in a vicious cycle where we do this every year for as long as I've been in town.
But no, you, last year was the first time you did it
In quite a few
4 or
years.
5 anyway, yeah. And that's about a third of the increase for this year is
The
catching
report
up from
Right.
last year.
the buy down last year. So anything you do this year, you will have to replicate next year to keep the rate flat. You know,
Well-
spending and revenues aside. It's another way to look at the same question.
I think we have to be one of the lowest rates around, I would think.
Even if we didn't pay it down with fund balance?
I think so. I mean,
We're gonna be pretty close. I can't imagine that,
What did you say, Tyler? I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
I'd say even, you know, without taking into fund balance, the numbers that I see, I think we still have to be one of the lowest communities around.
If you want me to read through some stuff, I can tell you what.
I'd be more curious to see what Epping, you know, the one that border us.
Well, actually, this is a bigger list than the last time I saw, so people are catching up. Barrington, 2478. Deerfield, 2307. Durham, 2680. Fremont, 2940. I'm just picking the local names off the list. Adbury's up near $30.
Ouch.
I mention it because it's, you know, where I'm from.
Oh, Northwood.
Northwood's not finished yet.
Okay.
Raymond, 2635.
What's Lee?
Lee's gonna be up with Madbury. They're not done yet, but they're,
Even with all the commercial that they have? Commercial real estate?
yeah, you gotta pay for the Oyster River badge on
Oh,
there.
right, they've got Oyster River in their school system.
Editorial comment there from a Oyster River taxpayer.
Many years ago,
Graduate and taxpayer, sorry.
Many years ago, I looked at the surrounding towns, tax rates, broke it down, and saw that the impact to the reason why our tax rate is low is because of the high schools that we have, that we go to. Oyster River is expensive, Raymond has its own high school. We use Dover, at that time we used only Dover.
All that friggin' industry they got. Did you have Epping or no?
No, they're not done yet.
Oh, okay.
Epping tax rate isn't that bad, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I know, they don't get half as much money as they thought they were gonna get from, you know.
They got a lot of commercial real estate.
They got a lot of commercial.
But I can't imagine that, they're lower than ours.
I don't think they have their own
No,
school.
no, but it's not as bad as like you think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but their
been a
typical
while
home
since I
price,
looked at
their typical home value is a lot less than the typical Nottingham home value.
Yeah, so they rely on
yeah.
the commercial, they got so much commercial.
Well, I'm not certain that like buying it down every year is a sustainable way to go.
It's
Now,
not.
no. Now, maybe we could crunch the numbers and find a progressively decreasing buy down to gradually work back to, you know, get the tax rate to where it would naturally have fallen had we never bought it down, right? Because we don't want to keep it so low that there's an expectation, a false expectation of,
It does
or a
give
false perception of
perception.
rising costs when it's simply a matter of not buying it down.
Well, I think what has happened in the past is, the practice of buying it down so much showed that we were still expending all this money, right? We were still voting on all this stuff, but our tax rates weren't going up. So it was, and if folks weren't aware that there was a significant amount of money that was put towards the, buying it down, they were just thinking, oh, we can build a new fire station, sure, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this, we can do that. And it's not gonna impact our tax rate, so, while I think that there might have been some good, reasoning to try to do it, I think it also misled. I mean, I will just say that I am for, doing it without any balance down. It is what it is, and it's, we, you know, we did so much last year.
That was a big
Are
fight.
you saying you for buying it down or not?
Not buying it down, for leaving it as is, because the amount of money we put towards last year, to buy it down has put us, you know, in that lower end of what DRA recommends, and, you know, it is, like, Chris points out, it is our operating cash, so it allows us to, maintain some viability.
Flexibility for
And
emergencies,
flexibility.
yeah. The only way to keep, the only way I see that we can keep our tax rate buffered against large increases in long term is to develop that hypothetical Nottingham business district out on Route 4.
I agree.
If we're gonna have a business district, that's where it's gonna be.
Yep.
Another thing too is if we, you know, so we've talked about the need to, in this budget cycle, put forth a larger budget than we have put forth in the last couple of years, to address the some of the challenges that we've had, especially on the staffing side of it. And so next year, so that what we put forth will be, the tax rate will come in next year. We might need to put a little bit down next year to offset kind of where the rate is now, and then a little bit bigger budget. And although you said there's 20 more houses coming in to town,
Well, you've got a proposal landing before the planning board, that's a,
Maple Ridge is being built, so, I mean, it could balance out with the additional houses that we've seen in the last couple of years.
now, if you add 20 houses at 300,000
300.
apiece, that's 6 million on a $620 million assessment, so it's less than 1%,
Okay, yeah,
which, I mean, it's not nothing.
Right.
But we've been pretty consistently growing at that, say, 0.7, 0.8 to 1.2, 1.3% range on our assessed values, pretty consistently. You know, the build-outs have been gradual enough that we had a little, the downturn, things slowed down, the values went down. But since it's turned around, it's been a pretty steady climb. If those 20 come to fruition, they probably keep the pace close to what we've had with Maple Ridge and the other smaller developments and one-offs. But it's not gonna move the number. You know,
It's not gonna move it significantly,
no.
but,
I mean, a 1% move, it cuts the taxes rate by 1%, but 1% of $22 is.
all right, so
2 cents.
do you need a motion?
Yes. Just before you skip it, the overlay number, you all understand what overlay is? Overlay, we set money aside for abatements for next year. We basically tax a little bit extra to cover anything that we have to give back in abatements next year. And that, what you're seeing now is plugged in at essentially $30,000, and that's where we've been every year since the reval in 15. We've been at 30,000. It's been sufficient. So I suggest you leave it there for now, but I just need your blessing on that before I push the final button for DRA as well.
Okay, so do you need a motion that, on the amount for the overlay?
Sure, yeah, you do it all at once. Do one big thing and I'll catch up with you. And I think you know this intuitively, but just a reminder that if town meeting wants to take money out of the bank to do anything, the
Right,
same fund balance, or you could come into town meeting in March and propose some expense or other, not be paid with taxation, but be paid with fund balance. So
right,
you're taking that decision and giving it back to town
right,
meeting,
which is,
another,
yeah, which
you
is,
know,
I think,
another way to keep the rate down
right,
next year without making the decision yourselves.
which we should have done with, I'm just putting it out there, should have done it with Ledge Farm, but. All right, so, does somebody want to make a motion?
What kind of language are we looking at for that?
Set the overlay at 30,000 and use zero fund balance.
All right, I'll make a motion that we set the overlay amount at $30,000 and apply $0 of our fund balance to offset the tax rate.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Highway winter operations.
Okay, just wanted to give you an update and get your blessing on one item. We are getting ready for winter, as you may have probably noticed, it's coming.
Unfortunately.
The truck that was damaged this summer is back and home and inspected and ready to roll as of 9 o'clock this morning.
As a plow?
As a plow and sander, yep. Our new truck is out front as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, ready to roll. We have enough drivers for each of our 6 trucks lined up and ready. We have 1, maybe 2 potential backups. We're still working on the backup role. We sent out an RFP for contractor plowers, trying to generate some more interest in, you know, get some bigger firms, get some new firms, get access to more trucks, and really got a whole lot of crickets from that. We got responses from two of our contractors that plowed for us last year. Champion Construction over on the lake, and Ben's company, All Seasons Landscape. Another one of our contractors is not gonna work for us this year, he's gonna go work for another town, so we're looking at 6 town vehicles and 3 contracted vehicles, which is a heck of a lot better than we had last year. I think Jack's got a plan on how to deploy them. We got salt, we got sand, I think we're about as ready as we can be. We'd like a little bit more depth. We may go out and look for a pickup truck contractor for tune-up stuff. We still have to talk about that, but I mainly wanted you to bless the concept that we're gonna hire Ben's company. We've not been in a position where we're doing business with a selectman, so I wanted to bring that before you. It was a bid submitted alongside everybody else's and fill out the same form, and it's rate competitive to provide us with 2 trucks and drivers. He had done some of that for us last year before he was in office, so it's not a new thing, but it's a little different. So I wanted to bring that to you before we move forward with it. They do good work, they're dependable, price is reasonable, so with your blessing on that, I think we're gonna be ready. Unless you have questions or concerns about.
There's nothing in the RSAs that say what you should or shouldn't do, right, if I remember?
No, there's no prohibition
There's
on
no-
it, no.
It's just appearance.
Yeah,
Yeah, but there was an existing business relationship already.
yes, prior.
So it's not like
prior
we're
to-
initiating something.
Correct,
Right.
yep. And it was part of a broad, this was an RFP sent
Right.
to
Many companies.
15, 20 firms.
Well, and Gary Anderson used to do contract work, didn't he, when he was a selectman?
Could have, yeah,
I think,
yeah. It's common in small towns for
yeah,
people to wear multiple hats like that. We probably have other relationships like that.
yeah.
Do we need a motion?
Sure, yeah.
Let me
let's just-
recuse myself.
Yeah, why don't you,
I don't know what the motion's gonna be. so.
You can sit in the audience. I gotta use the bathroom.
Do not put that in the minutes.
Yeah.
I think you use it as, All Seasons Landscape, right? Is
I
that
mean,
the
is the
name of it?
motion to just approve the highway winter operations?
what we really should do is specifically approve that company's.
That company,
So just approve the hiring of All Seasons Landscaping for winter plowing contract.
I make a motion that we approve hiring All Seasons
landscape.
Landscaping for our winter operations as we did last year.
Second.
All in favor?
Chris, is that one of the 3 contracted vehicles?
It's 2 of the 3.
3 of the 2, okay, thank you.
3 of the 2, 2 of the 3, whatever you want.
It makes sense now.
Did you see the truck outside?
No, I'm getting a picture of it.
It's dark out, you put
Light
it,
out there. A little bit light. We're gonna get more soon. Good ones are coming.
all right, so we're just taking a little, break. Are we going
I
into
think-
nonprofit next? Nonprofit,
Non-public.
sorry! You know who I work for. Are we going into non-public?
Please,
All right,
briefly.
Okay, thank you. Clarification.
yeah,
That, DRA, does that mean the tax rate is gonna be 22.64?
yes.
Per thousand.
Per
Assessed
thousand.
So
valuation.
that's set, that, you don't have to vote on that. That's it.
No, right, these folks don't actually set that rate, DRA does. They don't,
Okay, so
they don't have the
that's
authority.
set then. Okay, that's in stone.
So that'll be finalized probably tomorrow, and we'll start printing and whatnot.
And it will hit December tax bills?
Yep. Yeah, Steve, this might be of interest to you. We have to catch up for the full year with the second issue tax bills. So second issue tax bills, December tax bills are gonna be bigger than the June tax bills.
Oh, okay, that'll be in the December tax bill. Thank you.
Yeah, it will be applied in the December tax bill. Okay, could I have a motion for, non-public?
Do we have to close the public?
They're all leaving now.
Oh, we're going to go into non-public. When we come out of non-public, we will be closing the public
Thank you, Steve.
meeting
Afterwards.
after,
Okay.
with no further business.
All right, I'll make a, hold on there.